The eagle-eyed of you will notice this is BMW M135 number 3, and this particular one I didn't do an engine rebuild on. I did a straight transplant from another car, or at least a loose engine, with all the ancillaries attached to the engine. So the engine in this car and the injectors, turbo, intake manifold, they're all from another car. And what happened was, when I went to start the car for the first time, it just sounded dreadful. And it sounded similar to the N54, so the 335i twin turbo wastegate rattle that is a very common issue. This did, however, turn out to be unrelated. It seems to be something to do with the exhaust system has been messed with on this particular car, and the flap that closes to make it quieter on startup, it doesn't seem to do its job. I don't really understand, but anyway, whatever the fault was, it was causing me to have no boost and drivetrain to be displayed on the iDrive. So drivetrain malfunction. The car was driving absolutely fine otherwise, it just had no boost. You could even hear the turbo spooling. Every so often you'd hear the turbo whine, but just zero boost. I found codes 123432 and 120408. The 123432 is to do with the learning the position of the wastegate when closed, as you can see. And the 120408 is a consequential code of the 123432, as in it is disabling the boost because the wastegate closed position can't be learnt. Now, having a spare engine made it very easy for me to check out the wastegate actuator. So on these later models, this particular one is a 2014, and it does depend on the country as well, have an electronic wastegate actuator. The earlier models had a vacuum operated type. And what I did was I took the wastegate actuator off the original engine, noted that we have 5 pins here, and I put power to pins 1 and 5, which made the actuator come out. And if you reverse the polarity, the actuator would go in. Now obviously this is a different story when working on an engine that is in the car, because the wastegate actuator is down there. That's the connector there. Now, all I could manage to do on the one down there was get the probes in and get 12 volts to it, and I could get it to operate in and out. So this proved that the actuator was capable of operating, but didn't explain why it couldn't get in the right position. So I plugged it into an Autologic, and it told me that the tolerance, the closed wastegate closed position was negative 1.1 mil. But I couldn't find a procedure to calibrate it. So I assumed that was something that you'd only be able to do with a BMW tool. So I contacted a couple of people, and I ended up visiting Auto Technics in Doncaster to plug ISTA into the car. basically there is no calibration procedure available via the diagnostic equipment, but it did give the same reading as the Autologic of negative 1.1 mil, and it also gave information on how to set up when fitting a new actuator. And it basically said that the closed position, so the resting position, the position that the actuator should be in on startup, is, I think it was 26.6 mil. So the distance from here to the end would be 26.6 mil. Now, whether there was an issue with the new engine or whether the ECU didn't recognise the new position, I'm not sure. But it was worth a try just moving the actuator arm. So I removed the expansion tank, or at least pulled it out of the way, so there's an 8 mil here and then it just slots off here. And basically what you see here is down here. So we've got the end of the actuator coming out of this section here, and this is the connection to the arm on the side of the turbo. So this part here is the part that used to fail on the N54 turbos, the actuator arm bush for the wastegate. Anyway, I had originally assumed that it would be quite difficult to do this because you've got a 10 mil nut on both sides of this, which it doesn't even help to get to from underneath. But it turns out that all you actually need to do, if you can loosen this front nut, then the one at the back you can just turn around by hand. And what I managed to do was move the nuts further in, so this closer nut loosened it fully, put my finger down to tighten the wastegate actuator arm, and then just tighten the one on this side. And that's all I needed to do to adjust the position of the wastegate actuator. In fact, you can even see how many threads I've adjusted it by, because there's green markings on the thread and on the nuts. And to my astonishment, this fixed the car and boost was restored. The car has been working fine ever since. So what I thought that was going to be a very difficult technical issue and required calibrating through ISTA or through, you know, an aftermarket diagnostic equipment, actually turned out to just be a case of moving these two nuts and tightening up some of the slack that must have been in the wastegate arm. So I hope this helps, because I'd read online that there was people had changed the spark plugs and they were getting these codes, and or that the turbo itself had actually failed. And I was thinking, well, it's just not possible. All I've done is transplant this engine. So I'm very glad to have got this sorted, and I thought it was worth sharing.